Tilder!
What is this? This is the Accsoon CineEye, a wireless HDMI transmitter for your camera. How much does it cost? Approximately $250. It uses smartphones or tablets as the receiver. You can sync up to 4 tablets with one CineEye. Approximately 5 hours of battery life. Works up to 300 feet in clear line of sight or 100 feet without line of sight outdoors. You get all the regular monitoring tools like peaking and false color. Do I recommend it? If you're a narrative filmmaker that films with multiple cameras, definitely yes, and you should strictly hear the bottom lines number 1 and 2.
Done. Roll that intro.
What's going on, everybody? You're watching Too Long Didn't Read Filmmaker, where the answers comes first, the reasons come last, but we're constantly and always still learning. So today we're going to find out whether or not the Accsoon CineEye, a wireless HDMI transmitter, is going to be the right solution for you and your overall filmmaking kit. I want to thank Accsoon for sending this out to me so I can provide you with my unbiased review today. Coming in at $250, you get pretty much everything you need right out of the box. So you get the transmitter itself, the hot shoe mounting hardware, and you also get pretty much every type of HDMI cable depending on what DSLR you have. So you're pretty much good to go right out of the box. Now, the major cool thing about this CineEye, you're probably wondering, where is the receiver unit? Well, what it does is it transmits a signal and it uses a smartphone app or tablet app to basically, that is your receiver. You don't need to attach anything additionally. Not only can you transmit to one of these smartphone or tablet devices, you can actually go up to 3 or 4. Some websites are saying 4, so 3 or 4, but that is a really awesome feature that one transmitter can go up to 4 devices. Now, I'm going to get into why that's important in the bottom line, but just so you know right now, long story short, TLDR, is that you don't have to bring a whole army of stuff for your video village. Now, the second cool thing is that this CineEye has a built-in battery, and it can last approximately 5 hours. I'm going to conservatively guess 4.5, and the reason that I'm not doing my traditional tests is because I can't. All I have is my one smartphone to test the battery, and I can't just leave my smartphone on that app for 6 hours as I do my normal time lapses. So just know that 4.5 is probably the best conservative guess, depending on how far away you have your smartphone and the transmitter and how hard it has to work to generate that signal. But what I can do is give you my normal distance tests with all wireless stuff. So let's go to that right now. Please keep in mind that I am putting this wireless system in the worst possible filming situation, which is the wide open outdoors with no building structures nearby. Because of this, when I block line of sight, the system will stutter for a second, much like the wireless microphones I've reviewed. If I was in a pedestrian mall where I am near walls, line of sight won't be as big of an issue. For the distance test, I have a camera recording my cell phone, and that's because I don't want to screen record my cell phone because I want all the processing power to go to this Accsoon CineEye. So here we are as I hit 50 feet away, and I'm waving my hands so that you can see the motion. As I turn around here, my body is blocking the CineEye completely. I wave my hand so you can see how that works. And now we're back in line of sight as I make my way to the 100 feet marker. Approximately every 5.5 parking spaces is another 50 feet. So here we are at 100 feet away with line of sight. And as I turn around, you'll see it kind of judder for a second, but the CineEye will eventually pick itself back up. And we are good at 100 feet away with no line of sight. It does take a second for it to pick it up though. So now we're going to make our way to 150 feet. And with line of sight, we're still doing good. My motion is still more or less smooth. Here I am giving the signal that I'm 150 feet away. As I turn around, this is where we lose it. It doesn't really pick back up, and you can see that it doesn't work that well. As I turn back around, again, it picks up the signal with nice line of sight as I make my way to 200 feet away. And here I am, 200 feet with clear line of sight as I give you the signal. And you can guess it, as I turn around, it's not going to do so hot. So kind of lags and it picks up eventually. Now here we go. We're in line of sight, and you saw it kind of stutter again as it's trying to figure it out now that we're nearing 200 feet away. But once it locked on a signal, 250 feet, We're still pretty good as I give the signal. And you can guess it, as I turn around, it's really not going to do anything here. So pretty much just freezes completely. And it takes a second until I turn back around. And now I'm making my way 300 feet away with line of sight. We're still good. It's still doing quite well as I give you the signal. Everything looks pretty smooth. And as I turn around, we go completely lost. And here we are with the indoor test as I make my way out of the office and into the adjacent room. These walls are pretty much just your standard house walls, wood, nothing crazy, and the signal seems to do just fine. Now, if you're wondering why I'm doing this angle, it's because I'm just finished moving a bunch of stuff and the place is a mess, so I don't really want to show that. But I'm making my way through the kitchen and I'm wobbling my head around so you guys can still see. And now we have quite a few walls in between, and the signal still seems okay. We do see the moment that I walk out, here's where we get cut off. It's trying to find a signal, and it eventually does, but I would say this is as far as I would go in terms of indoors. In terms of the app, it's pretty simple. We have the waveform over here. And if you click it one more time, it'll bring up the RGB parade. And we have a grayscale. And then we can also check the RGB channels. We have focus peaking, which is pretty self-explanatory. You can choose what color you'd like, as well as how intense the peaking is. And I have to say it does a pretty good job. Let's take a quick look right here. I'm gonna shoot it to red. I'll go out of focus. And then as I come back in focus, you can see it latch on. We have false color, which is awesome. Your chart is on the left there. Histogram. We have zebras, which is awesome because we can actually go much lower. So if you want to put it at the skin tone level of about 50 or 40, then you can immediately check for skin tones pretty easily. And then of course we have LUTs if you wanted to load any. And then over here in this far menu, we have quite a few stuff like center marks. We have safe markers, which is great. I love the ratio marker that actually mats out the image so you can see what your framing is. And then we basically have a couple other things here. I probably won't use those, but we can zoom in to check focus, which is great. And then of course, if you have an anamorphic lens, we can de-squeeze the image as well. And other than that, that is pretty much it. I have the color range set to full personally. In terms of the lag, they are rating it at approximately 60 milliseconds. So if you're shooting in 30p, that probably comes out to a little bit like 1.5 frames. If you're shooting in 24p, it'll be a little bit less, maybe approximately 1 frame. But the reason I can't really test this for you guys is because the GH5's HDMI port, even when it's plugged into just a regular HDMI monitor, there's already a lag in it. That's just the way it is. So it's really not fair for me to use that with the CineEye and then say, yes, there is lag, because unfortunately it's the GH5's problem. But what I can say is when I do wave my hand in front of the GH5 and then I look at the smartphone, the lag looks very, very similar to what the lag looks like when it's plugged straight into an HDMI monitor. So in that case, the 60 millisecond lag is really not that bad. So what's the bottom line here? Is the CineEye something that you should be considering for your overall kit? And I have to say, if you've been looking for a wireless HDMI transmitter for a while for your filming, I have to say, look no further, because at $250, it packs quite a punch and does a very, very good job. Now, I'm gonna come at this from a narrative filmmaking standpoint, which most of you, if you've been here for a while, know that that's what I primarily do. And so here, think about it this way. I've been known to shoot 2 cameras, 3, maybe even 4, definitely up to 5. So if you had to go the traditional wireless HDMI route, where you have a transmitter and you have a receiver, okay? So transmitter being on the camera, that's fine. If it doesn't have a built-in battery, then you need to give it a battery. But it's the video village part that is really interesting. So for one camera with a traditional setup, the video village for that one camera is going to need the receiver, probably a battery to power it, and then you have the monitor, which probably just an Andy Cine monitor or a Fotka monitor, and then that needs a battery as well to be powered. So now you have 4 things you need to have in order to have one camera be able to feed something wirelessly over to Video Village. And as you get more and more cameras into the mix, you now have 16 different items to get it to work. With the CineEye, you have a tablet, and that might just be it. But if you want to keep it powered indefinitely through the day, you have a power bank, 2. So instead of 4 things for just one camera, you now have 2. But depending on how powerful that power bank is, it might be able to power up 2 tablets, no problem. So for 2 cameras, instead of having 8 different things to get it working, you're now at 3. But let's say you're a little crazy, not really, but you got yourself one of those bigger honkers of a USB power bank that can plug up to 4 iPads and you're good to go. Well, 5 things for 4 cameras and not 16 things for 4 cameras. Okay, that is where the CineEye is really going to make things much more easy to bring with you on set, and also just general setup. You can just take that iPad with you and you're good to go. You set it up, you're good to go. It's really, really easy. The next thing is how that iPad, depending on if you have 3, 4 of them on set, can now serve another purpose while you're on set. Because nowadays you can control your sliders, your audio mixers, your light setups, a bunch of different film gear can be done through a smartphone app. And instead of having everybody having to download the app, and maybe one was on Android, one is on iOS, and now they're running battery power out of their cell phone, so they got to keep charging. Basically, it becomes a huge mess when everyone is using their own smartphones. But now your Video Village can also have these dedicated iPads that already has all the apps loaded on it, everything is preset, and they can go out and go dial in everything that they have to do before you start shooting, and then you bring it back and then you make it your Video Village. So all those iPads are now able to serve a dual purpose. Now, I know some of you might be saying, well, hey, an iPad is expensive, a tablet is expensive. Well, I'm using an iPhone SE, which is like 2.5 years old, and the internals of it is only an iPhone 6 Plus. We're at iPhone 11 now, I think. So I'm quite a few generations back in terms of overall hardware. You do not need to buy the latest and greatest tablet. You need to buy something that's within the last, I'd say, 4 years, and that's good enough to go. Sure, the battery might be a little off, but you can replace the batteries if you're savvy enough. But if you do want to get the latest and greatest, then check out to see what kind of tablets you can get on the used market. Maybe someone just used it for a year and got rid of it. So that being said, monitor these days, if you want to compare the two, the Andy Cine A6 Plus right now, I believe, is $200 some, and the Fotka is approximately $140 some, if I remember correctly. And then you have to buy a battery for it, and then you might need to buy a battery for the traditional wireless transmitter. So it adds up pretty quick. So generally speaking, a tablet, especially yesteryear's used tablets or refurbished, they're going to hold a much bigger value overall because they can serve a dual purpose. Now, in terms of how well this is going to do on a traditional narrative film set, or maybe even corporate, I want to say that all the distance tests that I performed, while yes, it's going to be choppy at 50 feet when you have line of sight blocked, when you're outdoors in a clear, wide open space, all those little hiccups, I don't think are going to really play into you on a normal film set. And here's why. Because the Video Village, because it's so small and portable, and you don't have to move a whole lot of stuff, you can definitely be a lot closer to the cameras. And usually the cameras are all shooting one direction, unless you're trying to pull off a one take, in which case you're definitely going to need a hide. But if you are locked down on tripods, or you have all your cameras facing one direction, the Video Village is just going to be tucked away right behind them, and you're not going to be 50 feet away. You're definitely not going to be 200 feet away. You're going to be pretty close. So I don't really think the line of sight when you're outdoors is really going to be that big of a deal for you. When you're indoors, it's really not going to be that big of a deal. Because again, if you're in a corporate or a narrative film setup and you're all shooting one direction, the video, because you're indoors, the Wi-Fi signal is going to be able to bounce around. And even if you're just around the corner, it's going to be fine. You're not going to really have a dropped signal. So in terms of these certain setups, I think you're going to be just fine. And I wouldn't really be worried that you're going to be losing signal. The only time I can feel you're going to be worried about losing signal is if you're trying to do a one take outdoors where the camera is going to be moving all about and you can't be anywhere near that set. You have to hide. That's probably where you're going to run into a problem. If you're doing a one take indoors inside of a house, I don't think you're going to have that big of a problem unless your house is literally made of like concrete and lead or something that could be blocking signals. I think you should still be fine. So generally speaking, again, I wouldn't really be too worried about the whole distance tests. Now, in terms of it being able to broadcast one camera to 3 to 4 smartphone devices, is this something that could be usable? And I have to say, it can be. Probably just up to 2 devices. I don't really know why you would go up to 3 or 4, because the video village, your director is going to be there, or if you're on a corporate shoot, the director's going to be there. So that second unit, that second smartphone or tablet, what have you, I think can do very well as a focus pulling tablet. Now, this really depends on what camera you're using, because like I said, the GH5 already inherently has a lag that's almost a second, I feel. So if your camera is already going to lag out of the HDMI port, then the focus puller is always going to be approximately whatever that lag is. But if you have an HDMI that doesn't have that lag, add in the 60 milliseconds, which is approximately 1 to 1.5 frames, then the focus puller is going to be pretty good. They might only be 2 frames off at the worst in terms of the HDMI's own lag, but generally speaking, yes, it will be fast enough for a focus puller that is literally sitting right next to the camera unit. So you know that the smartphone or tablet is not going to have to work super hard to get that signal because you will be very close to that camera. Now, I have heard the complaint that the CineEye does not transmit audio back to the iPad. And for that, I get it. There are certain situations where you would need that because maybe you don't have an audio engineer on set that is doing the dedicated audio mix. Rather, all 4 of your cameras maybe have a Rode Wireless Go on it and your cameras are serving as the audio for your film. In those cases, sure, but again, if you're in a narrative film set or a corporate film set, your video village is pretty close to the camera crew and the camera crew is pretty close to the speaker or actor. In those cases, you're still going to be able to just hear it in general because quiet on the set. You only hear the actors talking. When you're in a conference and you're filming the conference, if the person is super far away in general and the camera crew has to be all the way in the back, then generally speaking, the speaker has an actual microphone that's going to speakers. So you're going to hear that just fine. But if you're in a small conference room, again, not a big deal. You're going to hear them in real time, their real voice. You really do not need to hear the audio coming in from your camera. And last but not least, I just want to say the CineEye might not be a Teradect, but it's pretty darn close for $250. And I think for a lot of people that are filming independent films, doing some corporate lectures, or just want to get a basic wireless HDMI feed back to a video village inside of a studio setting, I don't think you can really go wrong with this at $250. And hey, that is it for this week, everybody. If this video has made all the influence in your purchasing decisions, I would truly appreciate it if you check out my Amazon affiliate links down below. Again, this costs nothing extra to you. It just gives me a little compensation so I can continue making videos like this for you. And as always, if you have any questions or comments, go ahead and leave it down below. I will get to them as fast as I can. And until then, like, subscribe, and share, and I'll see you guys in the next one.